Good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sandra Masharia. I'm the director of the UN Information Service here in Nairobi. And I'd like to give you a warm welcome to the United Nations office at Nairobi for this media briefing and guided tour of UNON. Thank you for putting your phones on silent. And I'm pleased to be your moderator for the day. First, one of the housekeeping things, we are live streaming, we're broadcasting this on UN Web TV. So just be aware that that is happening. Colleagues, you will have received the 2-page press briefing note that was shared with the invitation to this briefing. And this briefing now is an opportunity to dig deeper into UNON's history, its growth, and its vision for the future, which also includes some of the infrastructure investments and the planned expansion. For this briefing, we have 4 speakers in front of you. We have Undersecretary General and Director General of UNON, Mrs. Zainab Hawa Bangura, who will be making opening remarks. This will then be followed by short presentations by our Senior Coordination Officer for the Division of Administrative Services at UNON, Mr. Kamran Baig, the Chief Central Support Services for the Division of Administrative Services, Mr. Stephen Stanner, who will do an overview of the Office and Expansion project, some of which you will actually see today on the walkthrough. And our final presentation will be by our Conference Facilities Project Principal Program Manager, Mr. Jack Howard, and he will provide a brief overview of the new building, the Conference Facilities Project, for which we are to begin early works later this year. This will be followed by a Q&A session where we will be joined online by the Director of the Division of Administrative Services, Mr. Chris Kakaldi. He could not join us in person today. And then we will conclude the briefing with some closing remarks by the Director General. Following that, we will proceed on the guided tour. So I hope you have worn some good walking shoes. And this will be guided by Mr. Stephen Stanner and Mr. Jack Howard. We will have a few stops along the way, which will also be an opportunity for further Q&A if you want clarity at that stop. As this is a working day and our colleagues are in the office, we kindly request your cooperation when following the guided tour. We will then finish the guided tour at the lobby just above the stairs, and that there'll be some more tea and coffee and an opportunity for any final Q&A. So there'll be opportunities for that engagement. Finally, the remarks that the Director General will make and the presentations, there'll be hard copies at the back if you want to pick one up. And my final point will be also, again, to welcome you as our media colleagues to UNON. I know some of you already have accreditation to UNON, but for those of you who do not, I would invite you to get in touch with us. We have information online, the forms are online, but please, if you're not accredited, it is free, it is annual, and we welcome that. We just need from you, of course, your letter of application, a letter from your employer, and then when you come in, you would have your picture taken by security and you'd get your accreditation badge. Again, thank you for joining us this morning, and I will now invite the Undersecretary General and Director General of UNON, Mrs. Zainab Hawa Bangura, to make her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Dear ladies and gentlemen of the press, colleagues and participants, good morning, and a very warm welcome to the United Nations office at Nairobi, the only UN headquarters office in Africa and the Global South. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you with us today for this important press conference. It is the first of its kind that the United Nations office in Nairobi has ever held. So a big thank you to you all who have contributed to this event in one way or another. As earlier mentioned, my name is Zainab Hawa Bangura, and I am the Director General of UNON at the Undersecretary General level. In this capacity, I wear 3 hats. Firstly, as the UNON Director General as mentioned. Secondly, as the representative of the United Nations Secretary General in Kenya, with attending political and representational responsibility. And thirdly, as the designated official for Kenya, being the most senior UN official at the duty station. As designated officer, my responsibility covers the safety and security of all UN assets, staff, and dependents, including those of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. There are 4 UN headquarters duty stations in the world, located in New York, our global headquarters, Geneva, UNON, Nairobi, UNON, and Vienna, UNON. Each of these duty stations is unique with its own strength and peculiarities. New York is the main United Nations headquarters, as you all know, where all policies are set, budgets established, and system-wide decisions made. Geneva serves as the seat of most humanitarian agencies and headquarters to most UN agencies, funds, and programs, retaining a strong multilateral presence and playing host to mirage negotiation efforts and conferences held with and on behalf of the United Nations entities at the UNON premises. Vienna serves as the global headquarters of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes, UNODC, and the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, respectively, with UNON performing administrative functions for the entities in Vienna. Nairobi serves as the global headquarters for the United Nations Human Settlement Program, UN Habitat, and the United Nations Environmental Program, respectively, with UNON providing administrative, conference services, security and information services to these entities and to the resident coordinator system globally. Although UNON's role is predominantly one of service delivery, which we do in 167 countries worldwide, we are making every effort to position UNON at par with New York and Geneva headquarters offices, including in hosting global cooperation multilateral meetings. You may recall that in May 2024, UNON hosted the United Nations Civil Society Conference in support of the Summit of the Future. The first time in 69 edition, this global conference was hosted on the African soil. So for 68 years, it was hosted out in the global south. So for the first time, they brought it here in Nairobi. While New York and Geneva have dedicated UN press corps, this is not the case with Nairobi. However, we are pleased to work with you to promote better understanding of the United Nations, not just of the work of the organization, but of the values and principles that created the organization 80 years ago out of the ashes of the Second World War. As you will hear from the presentation on UNON, we are physically the largest UN headquarters office worldwide with 140-acre footprint, and we're grateful to the government of Kenya for having provided this land in the 1970s as a sign of its commitment to multilateralism. And further, for the collaboration we have since enjoyed over the years to date. The United Nations as a whole, I have to be honest with you, is a massive and often complex mechanism. We acknowledge that this sometimes makes it a bit challenging to have a clear understanding of who we are and what we do, especially here in Kenya, where you have everything the UN is doing at every level. So it's a little bit challenging even to some of us. We are gathered here today to mark a symbolic first step in initiating a lasting, sustainable partnership with the media towards information sharing and responsible reporting, as well as to mitigate potential misinformation, disinformation with the public and the media at large. That is why your presence here is not only appreciated, it is vital. As members of the press, you are essential partners in the fight against misinformation, disinformation. Your commitment to accuracy, content, and truth plays a crucial role in ensuring that our global community receives clear and correct information. By helping to inform the public and dispel false narrative, you serve as a critical safeguard against confusion and exploitation. We deeply appreciate your presence, attention, and above all, your role as trusted stewards of public information, and look forward to engaging with you. I'd like to thank my colleague, Sandra, who is our Director of UN Information Services here in Kenya. She is actually the brainchild behind today's press briefing and what we hope to be a long-lasting beneficial partnership for us all. As part of today's agenda, as you already heard from Sandra, we'll walk you through the UN Gigiri Complex renovation milestone. You've heard a lot about it, dollars being thrown here, time scale, but today you're going to hear from us and you see some of the beautiful design of how this complex is going to look like by 2030. And the measures being taken to support staff and maintain operational efficiency and continuity. There will, of course, be question and answer segments where we'll welcome your questions. You, rest assured, will be very open and frank. Whatever information we can provide, we will be able to provide, because it's not everything we know about. Yeah, and I have to be honest with you. I have with me today some of my senior colleagues, part of the management team, who will provide the necessary substantive insights into today's presentation. Once again, thank you for your time, your professionalism, and your partnership. Welcome. So let's begin the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director General. I would now like to invite Mr. Cameron Baig for his presentation, which is an overview on UNON itself.
Good morning again. Welcome to UNON, and thank you, DG and Sandra, for welcoming us. We are very happy to make this presentation and happy to answer questions afterwards. So my presentation will focus mainly on the mandate, the structure, and some of the initiatives UNON has taken. As Madam DG already mentioned, we started in the 70s when the government of Kenya was kind enough to give us this land that we're currently on with 141 acres, personnel in Kenya, and majority of them based in this complex of 4,000 personnel in Kenya, and majority of them based in this complex of 4,500 staff working around this campus. Already mentioned, we have the two headquarters of the United Nations, UNEP and Habitat, based in the only two headquarters in the UN system that are based in the global south. We have over 50 entities working from Kenya, which have several different divisions, departments within their area working in Kenya, majority of them again working out of this complex. Among these, we have over 20 regional offices that cover the region, is mostly Eastern and Southern Africa, and some of them cover the whole of Africa. We have 27 Kenya country offices under the resident coordinator that I'll talk about in a second again. We have offices based here for Somalia, Sudan, peacekeeping, and political missions. So covering the whole range of the UN humanitarian development system and peace operations. So combined, we are about 20,000 with our families and dependents in the country that are covered under the security management system of the UN. So this gives you a highlight of some of the key personnel are in this duty station. You've already met our DG. She is the most senior person in Kenya for UN. She's the designated official for security and safety of all the personnel, the 20,000 I mentioned, 20,000 plus. And he's the representative of Secretary General in Kenya. We also have, as I mentioned, the headquarters of UNEP is the global headquarters. It's led by the Under Secretary General and Executive Director, Ms. Anderson. We have the UN Habitat Executive Director and Under Secretary General, Ms. Rosbach, which is also a global headquarters with global operation covering all the countries from Kenya. And we have the special envoy for the Great Lakes, Mr. Wang. He covers the sub-regional offices. He covers 14 countries in the Great Lakes regions. In addition, we of course have the country team led by the resident coordinator with 27 entities. We have UNTMIS, which is the UN Transitional Mission in support of Somalia with an SRSG for Somalia operations that we support from here as well. And we have UNSOS, the UN Support Office for Somalia with an ASG, Assistant Secretary General, that also supports Somalia, that we support from Kenya as well. In addition to that, we have the AFPs, the agencies, funds, and programs that have offices for the regional offices that I mentioned that cover many of the Eastern and Southern Africa countries, as well as some of them covering the whole of Africa from Kenya. We have, of course, parts of Sudan country team based here, as well as Somalia country team based here, providing support to those countries. So as I mentioned, of course, we have a resident coordinator who plays a key role in Kenya. He covers the 27 Kenya-based entities. Some of those are listed here. Some of the larger ones, of course, you're familiar with: UNDP, UNOPS, UNHCR, WFP, etc. And he works very closely with the government of Kenya as well, with the ministries, departments, and agencies. We have 132 resident coordinators globally, but 120 of them are specifically working on their respective countries. The remainder basically are working as deputy SRSGs in the peacekeeping operations. So just a little bit about the mandate of UNON. It was created back in 1996, initially to provide services to UNEP and Habitat, to all administrative and operational services globally. Since then, we have expanded, and we are currently providing services to the resident coordinator system globally as well. In addition, we provide many countries in the region support, and of course, the support to all the entities based in this complex. We have a common back office where we provide operational support to the entities. This is our core mandate. We've been doing this for over 30 years. And as I mentioned, we cover this locally, regionally, and globally. We are already, the DG also mentioned, among the 4 headquarters. We are the 3rd largest global headquarter in the UN system after New York and Geneva. And again, the only headquarter in the global south that is headquarter for the UN system. So the Director General herself, she is at the Under Secretary General level as the representative of the Secretary General, and is responsible for all activities of the UN operations in Kenya, including the UN office at Nairobi, UNON. She represents the SG in relations to the permanent missions in Kenya, the embassies, and acts as the main interlocutor with the Kenyan government on all areas affecting the UN system. She cooperates with all the intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations in Kenya as well. In addition, she serves as the designated official for the UN, which means she's the most senior UN official in Kenya for providing security and safety of all personnel in Kenya. So this is sort of our organogram. There are 4 main divisions of UNON in Kenya. You have UN Information Services that Sandra leads, that you already met. We have the Department of Safety and Security. Peter is here. Peter is in the back. He's our Chief Advisor for DSS. We have Division of Conference Services. We have our Mr. Endwend sitting into the front row. And we have our Director of Administrative Services who will join us shortly online. And again, as I mentioned, or DG mentioned as well, we are over 140 acres in this beautiful compound. You will take a tour of the complex a bit later to see parts of it, the new facilities that we've done. We have a ratio of 1:4 international to national staff, making sure one of the most qualified workforce in the UN system, providing cost-effective services to our offices in Kenya and regionally and globally. And some of the highlights, I'll just mention one of the highlights, we are ISO 14001 certified, making sure we have proper management of water, energy, and wastewater in accordance with this ISOs. We are present or supporting countries in 166 countries around the world. So these are we are present in all of the continents in the sense of providing support. So we have one of the largest footprints of the UN entities in the world, providing support to more countries globally. And I'll stop here and pass to my colleague. Thank you. Yes.
Can you go back?
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Can you go to our presence, UN presence in Kenya? Remember where you had all the thing?
This one?
I wanted to just support Cameron. It is only in Nairobi you have this configuration. It's only in Nairobi, not New York, not Geneva, anywhere, where you have everything the UN is doing at every level and so varies. So I just wanted to emphasize that's what makes Nairobi unique. You have everything the UN is doing at every level, whether the headquarters, global offices, regional, and also supporting Somalia offices, the staff when they think, and we're also the Medivac center for most of the region, but also evacuation. Peter, is it 11 or 13 evacuation, around the world when people have crisis like Sudan? When it happened, we were contacted. So they had to move here, Somalia. So that's also make Kenya very critical because we have the office space to accommodate staff. We work very well with the government. The capacity, it's overwhelming. So I just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's you, no?
Thank you, Cameron. And now I'll hand over to Mr. Stephen Stanner.
Good morning and welcome to UNON and to the UN Gigiri complex. I'm going to give you a brief overview of one of our major capital improvement plans. I'll start with a little bit of a background of the UNON Gigiri complex and conclude with the project that we are just finishing this year. So you've heard from the Director General that the Kenyan government very graciously donated 140 acres in the 70s. As you can see on the screen, we've had many different phases of construction. The blocks in the red in the top left-hand corner, they are still called blocks A to J, and they were built in the mid to late 70s as semi-permanent buildings. They were put up in about 6 months when the compound was first established. They were purposely built to the side to allow for the main master plan across the rest of the complex. The main development was in the 80s, which you can see in the orange color. That was the whole central conference center, which is in the middle of the screen. and then going out to the right where you can see some office blocks. They are still called the blocks M to X. In fact, V, W, and X are in yellow. They were completed in the 90s. So we had construction in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then you can see on the top right-hand, sort of a brown-colored block, that is UNEP and Habitat's headquarters, was constructed in 2010. That was the first construction that was actually fully managed by UNON. The prior phases were handled through teams that were sent from New York. That project in 2010 was completed on budget and on time. As we went beyond 2010, we started to relook at the compound. It had nearly a 50-year master plan, and we had to relook at whether the layout was still fit for purpose. As Mr. Howard will explain shortly, conferences have grown significantly in numbers over the years, and the conference center was designed for a capacity of about 2,000. The large environmental conferences that we've had in recent years have gone to over 6,000. And when you have those kind of numbers in a facility designed for 2,000, the entire compound is pushed to breaking point. And in fact, office users are sometimes told to stay at home just because the numbers are very difficult to handle between office users and conference users. So a decision was made. We looked at a 20-year plan from 2010. What were the next phases of construction? One was to replace the blocks in red, which were the A to J blocks. They were well beyond their useful life. And the next one was to upgrade the conference center. So I will explain how we've proceeded with the replacement of A to J, and Jack will explain the conference center. So in 2017, we started the proposal through the General Assembly to look at the replacement of A to J. We realized that we needed to remove those blocks to give space for the conference expansion out towards the left of your screen, which is the west of our compound going towards UN Avenue, because that space has to be opened up for conference services and the facilities and the large numbers of visitors of up to 9,000 who come to these big global conferences. So we had to move the new offices to the right, which is the east of the compound, so that all offices were on the east side or the right of your screen, with everything on the left and west conferencing. This is a design of the major component of that new office expansion. As I said, the project began in 2017. There were several phases. But in 2023, we actually broke ground for the new building. And we have completed that building on time and on budget as of earlier this year, April of this year. This is an image. The first was an architectural image. This is an actual image of the building when it was getting close to completion, and this is a completed photo of the building. The building behind is the UNEP and Habitat headquarters, and as you can see from the new building, environmental sustainability has been a major focus of everything that we do. So as part of the A to J project, one of the earlier works was a logistics building, which is the first energy neutral building on this complex. Using solar power, we produce as much power as we use in a 12-month period. And the new office building is also energy neutral. As you can see, it has a raised solar roof, and that solar roof produces as much or more power than the building consumes during a 12-month period. The raised roof also provides open air, indoor, outdoor working environments. Given that we have the beautiful climate in Kenya, we're able to maximize the use of outdoor workspaces through rooftop terraces, balconies, and outdoor work pods. This became a very important aspect of our workplace during the COVID pandemic, and we've taken those lessons into our new developments to make sure that we have maximum availability of outdoor space. There's also an efficiency measure behind this, because what that means is that you can increase the capacity of your offices by minimizing the number of meeting rooms that you need within the blocks. If you provide meeting spaces on roof terraces and outdoors, outdoor work pods, it means that you can increase the capacity within the blocks. This is one of the major requirements of the General Assembly. prior to approving of this project is that we had to improve our utilization, get maximum value out of the investments that the member states had made. And we've achieved that. Our target was to achieve up to 25% better utilization, i.e. 25% more people per floor. We've achieved in many cases up to 40%. And this has allowed us to accommodate many more entities that have been moving here. Some of the large UN entities, including UN Women, UNICEF, UNFPA, have moved some of their functions from other headquarters, such as New York, to Nairobi. Just to finish on environmental sustainability, we focus not just on energy neutrality and maximizing the amount of solar power that we can generate. We also focus very much on our waste management. Many years ago, most of our waste was not recycled. Now 99.9% of it is recycled. It's separated at source, it's recycled, and it is managed through sustainable sources, routes. The same with construction waste. Any demolition that we do, we sort and we manage and we separate. So we manage both our office waste as well as any construction waste. We're also looking at, so ultimately we're aiming to be a net zero compound by 2030. The conference project will be the last major phase of this. The A2J project has achieved energy neutrality for our current construction project. We're also looking at moving towards electric vehicles. For the last few years, we've been trialing an electric fleet, and our aim is by 2030 to roll out electric vehicles to replace our other vehicles. Finally, this compound, when it was donated to the UN, was already a coffee farm. But prior to that, many years before, it was part of the Karura forest. So we are also engaged in a major reforestation strategy. We have planted over 2,000 trees. And if you look at the Google map of this compound, you can see there's almost a continuous canopy between the Karura forest and this compound. And our aim over the next 5 to 10 years is to ensure there is a complete canopy. So we have the same forestation as the compound was many years before we received it. As already mentioned by Mr. Beg, we have an environmental management system, and we achieved ISO compliance as of January 23. We were the first UN headquarters to achieve ISO 14001 compliance. Now to conclude, this is a graphical image of what I showed you earlier. And it just confirms all the completed work. So you can see to the right-hand side of the image, which is the east of our compound, everything in dark gray color is complete. This is part of the A2J project. The top building on the top right is the new building. The other buildings, as part of the funding received from the General Assembly, we needed to renovate all existing buildings to get better use of what we have. So it wasn't just getting better use of the new buildings, we also had to get that 25 to 40% better use of our existing buildings. We've achieved that through reducing enclosed spaces, moving away from one-to-one desk assignment. So people do not necessarily own their own desk. There is space available when people are away from their desks, when they're at meetings, when they're traveling, when they're on leave. Others can use that space, so we do not waste any real estate. We maximize the use of the asset that we have. And as I said, that has allowed us to achieve a much better densification and better use of the space that we have. So you can see to the right, most of the blocks either newly constructed or renovated in dark gray. And in light gray, you see the remaining blocks we're renovating. They'll be complete by the end of this year. So we will be in a very opportune position by the end of 25, the first time in the 50-year history of the UN, where every single office building has been renovated or is new. And we have maximized the utilization, which means that we can maximize the amount of staff that we can accommodate for any movements that do come to this duty station. To the left-hand side, you'll see that the original A2J blocks that were shown in red on the first slide are dotted. That is because they will be demolished. And then you can see we've cleared the entire western side or left of your screen for the conference expansion project, which will be the biggest project that this compound has ever engaged in. And just linked to the renovations, You'll see this on the tour. We'll start by walking past the blocks that are being renovated before we go to the new buildings. Environmental sustainability is a big component of our project, but also accessibility. We've ensured that with the renovations, we've included elevators. Obviously, the new buildings, as part of their design, were universally accessible, but some of the old buildings constructed in the 80s and 90s did not have universal accessibility. We've managed to retrofit that as part of the current renovations, and we'll point that out as we proceed on the tour. Thank you. I'll stop there.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. And our third and final presentation will be by Mr. Jack Howard on the Conference Facilities Project, which will then also be followed by a video.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning to present the renovation and expansion of the UN conference facilities here in Nairobi. My name is Jack Howard. I'm the project manager, working for the Director General, who is the project owner. The Director General and Mr. Beg already mentioned the fact that UNON is the third largest duty station in the world in terms of number of staff, but we are actually the largest duty station in terms of size. So this is a 140-acre compound, the largest of its kind in the UN system. We're extremely proud to be located right in the heart of Nairobi, next to the Karura Forest, or actually part of the Karura Forest. And everything that we do as part of our project design philosophy, our approach to the project, not only from the office project that Mr. Stana mentioned, but also ours, the conference facility project, has this idea as its core, is that we are here in the only UN headquarters in the Global South, in the heart of the Karura Forest, and also at the home of the World Environment Program. This is an architectural rendering of the compound, the original expansion done in 1985. This image is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, the vision of the architect was more or less exactly realized, so that's positive. But also, if you look around, there was really not much in Gigiri in 1985. It was considered sort of out of the way. But today, you have all the embassies that have moved to Gigiri. We've got a lot of development, a lot of growth, and we are very proud to have been a part of that growth story in the Gigiri area. Now, moving on to our project, the General Assembly approved the maximum overall cost of the project, the scope, and the implementation schedule in its 78th main session. That was in 2023, a couple of years ago. The overall cost is $265.7 million US, and the implementation strategy entails construction starting next year and completing in 2030. The project is comprised of both new construction and renovation portions of the scope. We've got 4 new buildings. We've got a new visitor center, a new multi-purpose pavilion, new main entrance, and a new assembly hall, which is the centerpiece of the project. We're also building an entire 3rd story. We have a 2-story existing compound. We're going to retain that structure, and we're going to build a 3rd story with additional meeting rooms. As the Director General stated earlier, the total capacity of our current conference facility is only 2,000 participants, and that is woefully inadequate to host the calendar body meetings of our headquarters entities, which have full universal membership. Recent conferences of the United Nations Environment Assembly had over 6,000 participants. So you can see we've already far outgrown our existing facility, and our project will increase the total capacity from 2,000 all the way to 9,000. And currently we have 14 rooms, and we will expand that to 30. This is just an early design image of our security screening building. Along UN Avenue, we have inadequate screening capacity. We also have inadequate lay-by space on UN Avenue for buses and boda-bodas and Ubers, et cetera, et cetera. So this will have a much more generous place for delegates, members of the press and media, NGOs to enter the compound, and adequate screening to go through magnetometers and x-ray machines so that you can get to the meeting quickly. It'll be a dedicated pavilion just for large-scale meetings. This is one of the centerpieces of our design. This is our new visitor center. We currently do not have a visitor center, at least in its the complete sense of the word. This will house permanent exhibition areas, gift shops, lecture hall, places for special events, as well as enough space for delegates to get their badges for meetings. And it will also be the symbolic entrance, the front door, if you will, of the United Nations. We have this Karabuni sign, which has become a beloved part of our branding, which is currently here in the main circle. We'll move that to the front, and that will actually be visible from UN Avenue. We currently lack a strong street presence on UN Avenue, so this is going to correct that. We have many environmental features of the project, building on the successes of the office project that Mr. Stana just mentioned. We will have net zero energy, meaning we will produce at least as much energy as we consume using renewable sources, mainly solar. We'll also have water harvesting. So we have a water catchment system here. This is our water cistern, which will be used to recycle gray water and use for flushing toilets. We will achieve the highest possible green building rating from the leadership in energy and environmental design. We will achieve a platinum rating, which is the highest possible rating. And that's what we also achieved in New York in the renovation of the headquarters there. This is the showing the two halves of the visitor center. We have a visitors wing, which has a natural amphitheater, which is sort of carved into the landscape, as I mentioned, for special events, lectures, press events like the one we're having today. And then on the right side is the delegates wing to ensure that we have segregation of delegates and visitors, which is actually a security requirement, but it's also a functional requirement. This is our multi-purpose pavilion, one of the other features of the project. When we have large events here, UNEA, UN Habitat Assembly, et cetera, governments and, or member states like to host special events. There's an annual banquet hosted by the government of Kenya in the context of the United Nations Environment Assembly, which is typically hosted behind us on the hill, and that requires the erection of temporary tents. We don't feel that that's really adequate or appropriate for a modern conference facility at a UN headquarters, so we're going to be building a pavilion, which is essentially open air for any number of different types of events, whether it be art exhibits, fashion shows we've had in the past, banquets, special meetings, even lounges for big conferences, which we also do need. So that's the architectural impression. This is a computer-generated image of the completed design, and we will start construction on this building towards the end of this year. And this just shows that we have the ability to have partitions and have different types of events. It's almost like a convention center or exhibition center. This is our new main entrance. The main circle that you all came in this morning will be dismantled, and it will make way for the assembly hall. This is going to be our main VIP entrance for vehicles, which will have modern signage. It'll have adequate space for VVIP entrances like heads of state, which we have very frequently, and also press stakeout area. And this is the same building when viewed from the west. This is our main pedestrian entrance coming from UN Avenue, immediately on axis with the existing concourse, the one that's just outside here. We're going to retain all of the existing structure. The columns that you see in this room are actually, the structure is very strong. So we're going to perform what we call a gut renovation, meaning we'll keep the superstructure. Everything else in the project will be removed. The floor that you see here, the ceiling, the lights, all the electricals will be taken out and replaced with modern equipment. So it's a modernization project, which we sometimes refer to in the industry as a gut renovation. We're also going to be building a third story. Member states have asked we get this request a lot from conference services to have different sizes of meetings. We have caucuses, we have regional groups that like to meet to caucus. So we're going to have 5 new rooms on the roof, replacing the temporary rooms that were built hastily to host the UNFCCC COP12 all the way back in 2006, which have remained despite the fact that they were intended to be temporary. So those are going to be permanent structures, and you can see we're trying to blend in with the existing structure, but with a much more lightweight and modern construction type. This is an interior image of what that room might look like. We are going to actually increase the overall scale of the existing facility. This main concourse, again, that you probably walk down to get to this conference, it's very dark and sort of dreary. We're actually going to remove the middle layer, and we're going to increase the concourse to be double height, which will be much more commensurate with the scale of the new facility. And we're trying to integrate nature, which of course is one of the features of our compound. Now moving on to the main committee room. This is what is today conference room 1. Again, completely gutted. Only the superstructure will remain. We're going to replace everything. The delegate experience will be much more modernized. We'll have brand new Congress simultaneous interpretation equipment, brand new air conditioning, lighting. We'll even employ passive ventilation so that the room will be modernized, brand new, and will have an additional useful life of 50 years. And finally, the centerpiece of the project that I referred to earlier, the assembly hall. We currently lack a space that's big enough to host the main assemblies, the United Nations Environment Assembly, United Nations Habitat Assembly. This space will house 1,600 people. Just to give you a sense of the scope and scale of that room, the General Assembly in New York is 1,800 people. So we're just slightly smaller, but we're on par with both New York and Geneva. That's an image of the General Assembly Hall in New York on the right. So you can see that we're, of course, we're a UN headquarters and we want to look and act like one, but we're also unique in the sense that we are in Nairobi. It'll be the only assembly hall in the UN system that is surrounded on 4 sides by glass to give delegates and visitors the full experience of nature and having access to natural light and views. And that's what that space will look like. We plan to start construction on this space in 2026, and it will be completed in early 2028. So hopefully a future press conference will entail a ribbon cutting of this space very soon. Thank you.
Before you come in, the UN has, today they have 2 assembly halls. We have the one in Geneva, which was built by the League of Nations in 1936. The second assembly hall is the one in New York, where you see those heads of state stand to talk. That was built 1946 by the UN when the UN was created. So since 1946, this is the first assembly hall that is going to be built by United Nations Secretariat. So we'll be having 3 assembly halls. Geneva built 1936, New York built 1946. Hopefully, this one built when?
2028.
Hopefully, we keep our fingers. Thank you.
Right, and we'll now have the video of the rendering of what Jack just presented. Okay, thank you, Jack. And that audio in the conference room is actually from a UNEA meeting that was which was had in the conference room here. So that was real audio. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move into the Q&A session, and we are joined online by the Director of the Division of Administrative Services, Mr. Chris Kakaldi. A reminder too that on the guided tour, there'll be the opportunity to ask questions, and we'll have some roving mics, I believe, when you want to ask your question. We just ask that you let us know your name and the name of the organization when you pose your question. Many thanks. And so we'll open the floor. Okay. So we'll start with you here. We'll start with Naftali and then go to Jagi.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, Naftali Mwora is my name, Kenyan journalist, but working for Xinhua News Agency. Madam Bagula, we've had interaction with the modernization, expansion some weeks ago through your staff members. I understand this is the hardware part of that. I want to know from you, how about the software? What does this expansion, modernization, the upgrade of UN facilities means in terms of the rules-based world order? And what does that mean to the global south? Should we expect a more robust engagement of the global south in the UN affairs, particularly on issues that are so dear to this part of the world? We're talking about environmentalism, climate change, inclusivity, and all that.
Thank you, Naftali. I'll take one from Jagi as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. David Jagi, I'm here for DevEx. Just two questions. Would like to know just some more details about what are the functions of maybe the UN General Assembly Hall. Then if this is possible to answer also, following US pulling out funding for the UN, could you just maybe update us on whether you are looking or you've looked for maybe alternative sources where you can get funding to plug the gap left by the US?
Okay. And then we'll take Raphael, and then we'll give you a chance to respond.
Thank you so much. Rafael Obonyo. I contribute to a few outlets, including, for the sake of expansion, renovation, and possible relocation, I contribute to the nation. Two questions. One is on, you did mention that some of the key elements that you're focusing on in terms of the expansion is the issue of environmental sustainability and universal accessibility. Would be more interested to know if there are any other key elements that you're focusing on in terms of expansion. The second question is on contribution or rather support from the government of Kenya. Has there been any support from the government of Kenya, whether it is financial or otherwise? I think it'll be interesting to know that. And the last one is in terms of the expansion is great to the UN, but what is the contribution of that to the society in which the UN is housed here? And by that, I mean the economic contribution of the expansion to both Gigiri, but also to Kenya at large. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll take those. DG, do you want to start?
Thank you very much. With regard to the first question, as a UN, we serve member states. The UN the member states make all decisions. They provide the resources. So when they make decision, they hand it over to us to make it work, whether through the General Assembly, through the Security Council. So the member states themselves, we said to them, the hall is small, is becoming, because we're seeing that more member states are having meeting, they squeeze in. With regard to how they're going to do it, that's the decision for the member states. We have a very strong G77 plus China In all the discussions for the upgradability, they were the one who pushed that as members of the Global South, we want this to be strengthened. They took the decision in New York, said this is what we want to do. They sat down and provided the money and gave us the timeline. So we are here to serve them. So whatever decision they take, geopolitics, whatever is it, like they decided UNEP should be here, and President Jamaica agreed. So we will work on it. We're here to serve them. So once they decide in New York what they want to do, our job is to support them. So that's how we operate. So we do not start the discussion. They will come to us and say, like when we had the civil society meeting, they took a decision in New York, we have to have it in Kenya. So they will make those decisions. In my chief of staff education, they had the first Security Council meeting out of New York here on the Somali peace process. They decided we want to have it here. It's the first time the Security Council met in the Global South. So we will work to make Kenya be able, when called upon, to host whatever meeting. So those decisions have to be taken, be it at the AU, be it at the UN. So I think that's the first question I want to say. And on the, I think that's what the real to me. The next question, your questions on the finances. Like I said, the member states, we have different mechanisms how the UN is funded. The UN is big. You know, we have voluntary contribution, people give money. That's why you hear some organizations reacted early because the member states who gave them the money through USAID and others said to them, we're not funding. So we have different mechanisms. For us, UNON, we are funded through the General Assembly, through the UN annual budget, and that budget, member states contribute. We prepare the budget as a UN, and then we present it, and the member states are discussed, and they said, the SG goes and said, this is what I need, how many billion I need a year. The member states decide amongst themselves what is everybody going to contribute. So we call that assessed budgets. So it's a whole, all the 193 member states. We prepare, we are part of that regular budget, but as UNON, because of the services we provide, people pay for those services. People pay on the rent here. And the interesting aspect is UNON, as UNON, is the biggest contributor to the UN income section. Because all these offices here, they pay rent. And they don't pay it to me. They pay it to the UN budget. So they pay it and the UN works how much money it sends. So I will not be in a position here to tell you how all this cuts going to affect, because that will be discussed with the member states September, October. It's only December. We will know as part of the secretariat that member states are not paying, member states have reduced funding, and so the Secretary General will then sit back with us and say, this is what the budget has reduced, this is how much money I have, I don't have money. Because it has to go. So because the UN is very different, we have different entities of the UN, they decide, so you say it did not affect us, because that's part of the voluntary contribution to agency funds and program. You understand? But for us as a UNON, we get our budget through New York. So now we wouldn't be able to know how it's going to affect us until the end of the year. They are going to go into different committees, they discuss, complex, ACABQ, Fifth Committee, General Assembly. Then they will tell us by the end of the year, this is how much we have. So this is going out, this is going out, then we'll be able to sit back. So that's how it works. A little bit complicated, but that's what it works. And then I think the last you spoke about, I can say a little bit before I ask my colleagues to come in, and Chris is here. Obviously, on the support from the Kenyan government, the road, because once the proposal, the thing was did on the road, they said 2-lane road will not work. So obviously, that's how the government increased the 4-lane. You saw the development here. And we're sitting with the government working, how much water do we need? Chris will come in, I'll ask Chris to come in and say, how much electricity do we need? So we are working with the government to discuss, identify what kind of additional support we need if you're going to have more people in the compound. If you're going to have a conference or host of 10,000, we cannot host, how do you call your environmental meetings, the COPs, because we don't have the capacity. So imagine COP, the last time it was 35,000. So imagine you have a conference of 20,000. What does it mean with the on that later? So that the government, the good thing about it, the government is willing. We're sitting with them, the traffic. So we're working with the government on looking at all these issues. I'll ask my colleague Chris who will come on that later. So that the government, the good thing about it, the government is willing. We're sitting with them. My government colleagues working with Korea, somebody even with the energy. Because they told, my colleagues have told you, we're going to be net zero. Net zero means we might be producing more energy than we require. Will we be able to send it into the national grid to be able to be sold? Because we can't give, we have to sell it. So there are lots of discussions taking place with us and the government of Kenya. But maybe, I don't know if colleagues there, or Chris can come in, whether Chris has to add, he's online, and the other colleagues then can come to respond. Thank you very much. Right. Yes, Chris.
Thank you, DG. I think for Chris, can you hear us okay? And the question.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. A particular question that was posed that the DG is also throwing to you is the one about the government of Kenya's support to UNON.
Thank you, Sandra. I think I will add a little something to some of the other questions, if I may.
Sure. Thank you.
Just in relation to the question around, I think the word was software, and the role of Nairobi in the wider multilateral system. I think as the only headquarters in the global south, but more significantly one where a number of agencies are concentrating their efforts, we are just by an act of geography making the UN more representative. We are bringing more entities to do business from Africa, as opposed to a place where we just perhaps do development or humanitarian work, but it's a place where we run global programs from. We run regional programs from. So it's a place of UN business. I think that's quite critical. A number of headquarters functions have moved here, so it's a place from which the business of the world is done, as opposed to just the business of development in Kenya, or indeed the region. In relation to budget questions, yes, the DG's rightly, of course, said that we will find out UNON's fate in budget terms for 2026 later this year. But I think it is also worth noting that while a lot of, and you know it, you've read it, a lot of agencies are looking at financial challenges, Nairobi is part of an answer to those financial challenges, because Nairobi is a place where entities have been found it quite a cost-effective place to do business, and are therefore downsizing in places that perhaps are more expensive than Nairobi, and placing offices in Nairobi to operate. That said, what the benefits are to the wider community in Kenya, I think the UN, while the UN is required by its mandate to be representative of the world, it means that it cannot just recruit people from one particular nationality. The truth is, the largest number of staff from any country working in the UN in Kenya are Kenyans. Some of the construction you have seen on the offices, these are awarded to Kenyan contractors. Kenyan contractors maintain the facility you sit in. The UN employs directly and indirectly many thousands of people in Kenya. It is a major employer, and it spends a lot of its procurement activity on Kenyan companies and, of course, Kenyan labor. And as a result, I think it is undoubtedly a huge economic boon to Kenya, having such a large presence. The DG also mentioned the numbers of people coming to conferences. Well, of course, these people come into Kenya, they stay in Kenyan hotels, they eat in Kenyan restaurants, many of them take Kenyan safaris before or after their meetings. So I think that is a huge influx to a huge benefit to the economy as well. In relation to support from the government, yes, indeed, we have had quite extensive discussions with the government. There does need to be infrastructure upgrades in the area. That's important to us. And I think it's important to the many Kenyans who live in that area of town. They don't wish to be congested massively if the UN cannot, um, you know, is holding huge conferences and struggling to get people through the roads. But yes, there is also a need for water and power upgrades. We're assured that that will come as we invest, and that has always been the case. As the UN has grown, and the government of Kenya has worked side by side with us to facilitate it. And we're confident that that will continue. Back to you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mr. Chris Kakaldi. He's you'll have seen that he's our director of the Division of Administrative Services. Jack, and then Stephen, yeah.
Thank you very much. With respect to the question raised by DevEx about what are the other functions of the GA Hall, in addition to its primary purpose, which of course is to host the formal meetings of the United Nations headquarters entities, the United Nations Environment Assembly, United Nations Human Habitat Assembly. We also have many agencies, funds, and programs on the compound that you've heard about today. So those agencies also host their meetings here. And we've been, we understand that should the facilities be upgraded and modernized, that there should be a lot more interest from those agencies to bring larger meetings. We also have the multilateral environmental agreements that are, they're actually administered by UNEP, but in fact, their secretariats are located in other areas around the world. We have had some success of attracting those meetings. We had the Convention on Biodiversity here last year. But again, if we modernize and expand our facility, we think the other large MEAs could host some of their meetings here as well. And then finally, we have lots of public events. So we have it's actually Ms. Macheria's service, the UNIS service, that administers things like Model UN and other public events. In other duty stations in New York and Geneva, the large assembly halls are actually often rented out for commercial events or private events. We have special concerts, special cultural events, and we are aiming to do that here as well. We are fitting out the facility with a modern audiovisual system, and the actual acoustics and the shape of the hall would lend itself well to cultural events as well. With respect to the question from the nation on the other key functions, the other key objectives of the project, you're absolutely correct that the two main ones are environmental sustainability and accessibility for persons with disabilities. But we also have several key business objectives. One, of course, is just modernization. The building is almost 50 years old. It's in dire condition, and it needs to be modernized and made safe. So life safety objectives are also among the top objectives. The other one is ease of maintenance and operations to ensure long-term sustainability of operations over the 50-year cycle. Flexibility of space. Mr. Stana talked about flexible use of office space, but in fact, we also hear from our conference clients that they want flexible meeting rooms as well. More and more, our clients are moving away from sort of fixed furniture with very formal settings. They actually want flexible furniture arrangements with a variety of layouts, whether it be meetings, classroom-style seating, even Davos-style meetings. So flexibility is another objective. And finally, promoting the use of local materials and local technology and know-how. That's one of the key mandates from the General Assembly. We're going to be using local materials such as stone, concrete, and also local construction techniques and design methods to ensure, again, that the building is sustainable and easily maintained. Thank you.
Stephen?
Excuse me. I don't have very much to add, just to follow on from Mr. Howard's final comment. On these other areas of focus, clearly the best use of space is a critical one, both on the office and conference area. I mentioned this during my presentation. Given the environment that we're in, we've really maximized the use of indoor-outdoor working, and that has allowed us to get far better utilization of the space we have. Our member states, which include Kenya, obviously demand that we maximize the use of the assets that they've invested in. And I think by taking advantage of the climate and the weather in Kenya, using outdoor spaces wherever possible, maximum configuration of the spaces we have, taking away dedicated space when people are not using it all the time. I think these are all ways to maximize the asset that we have and to ensure the member states, the funding the member states put into these projects is maximized. And it also means that Nairobi is very, very well placed for any movements or any entities that are looking to move staff here without the need for any other significant investments. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
And just to add to Naftali's question, the Director General had mentioned the civil society conference that we held here last year. We had over 2,000 participants, and over 15, a majority of those were from Africa. And so it's a place that Africans could come and convene as part of that civil society meeting. That was the most significant tentpole moment and civil society meeting ahead of the Summit of the Future, where world leaders decided during the General Assembly on the Pact for the Future, which was very much about the future of global cooperation, the future of multilateralism, because they had identified that an organization that's 80 years old perhaps needs to relook at itself and see how it can better solve some of the world's problems and also the opportunities that it presents. Also, when you consider that when the UN was created, there were about 51 member states, and now we're 193. And so the world has changed a lot since then. So that's one of the examples and one of the reasons why that civil society conference was also held here. Thank you.
Sure, what Sandra said, one of the experiences we learned, we had more Africans who attended the meeting. One is, of course, cost effective. And secondly, there are not too many visa restrictions. Now where you have the visa restrictions are getting more and more difficult. So it's a possibility that different parts of the UN say, okay, if I want to attract the Africans, if I want to have a global conference in which I get more Africans involved, maybe I better have it in Nairobi. So we're sort of just preparing ourselves with the possibility that more meetings will be held here because this is something we're also discussing with the government. The government is very much aware that when this occasion arise, they will work with them in terms of the visa and other restrictions to be able to make sure that these people can attend freely. You know, they will have hotel. It's all in business, like Chris said. Where you have 5,000 people, we don't run hotels. The restaurants can't even cope with them. So there are many restaurants. And last, I want to say, I always describe my personal self as a DG. I have two maids, because I have my grandchildren come all the time, and my daughter is 14. I have a private driver. I have a gardener. I have 3 security, 2 in the evening, 1 at night. I have 2 who stand. So being here creates jobs for 8 people. And I don't want to talk about, I call Matthew my DST guy, I call Kennedy the electrician, I call Gabriel the plumber, I call Moses the carpenter. One way or the other, they get resources. So the economic benefit is not only what UN pays in, it's how much UN impacts the restaurants that thrive, the hotels. So that's the calculation. But we hope that at some point we will discuss with the government, we'll find a way to be able to do it, because the mayor of New York did an economic benefits of New York. They've done it in other countries. So we might be able to do something so that people can understand how does it benefit, not to talk the number of houses you rent, all of those things. So it has a lot of direct, indirect benefits. So it's not the money goes direct to the government, but the individual, the businesses, the life it affects, and everything. Thank you very much.
More questions from the floor? Okay, we'll go from Gilbert and then towards that direction.
I'm Goethe. I work for Radio Africa Group. The first question, do we expect the General Assembly to be held anytime in the future now that they are expanding? The second one is that there was negotiations on plastic treaty and the government has been pushing to have secretariat hosted here. Will it be accommodated within the ongoing expansions?
Okay, my name is Eric from Bloomberg. First, to clarify on the cost of on the budget for the ongoing construction work. So for the conference, it's for the conference facility, it's $265 million. 0.7, and then for the other buildings, it's 340. So a total of about 600. No.
62. The total is about 340.
Okay, so
So the
340.
one, the 62 or 66, whatever, is almost finished. That's his. And then we have the 265.7. That's the total. So it's almost 340 or something, you know, that range.
All right. And then my question is, once the relocation is complete, how many more agencies will be coming to Nairobi? Thank you.
My name is Hilary from KBC. I want to make a follow-up on a story I did on that was published by Al Jazeera. And I want to begin by quoting you, Madam DG. You quoted the Secretary General saying you're spending too much on yourself other than the people. And now my question goes to you specifically, and I want to ask, what specific measures are you or the UN you will use to engage the local communities like the ones I engaged in Githogoro slum, so that they may feel they are part of the growth in the Nairobi and the UN will be helping them? Thank you.
Why don't we take
Okay,
those?
let me start. Yeah. The first one on the General Assembly. The General Assembly will have to decide whether they want to have a meeting in Nairobi. We don't. As I mentioned in my beginning, I said the UN doesn't. We are just a supporting mechanism to the member states who created it. You know, like the Secretary General is the CEO of we are the Secretariat. What we are doing with all my colleagues is to build the capacity in Nairobi. If at some point the General Assembly members said, okay, let's go somewhere. This year or the next 2 years conference, we want to have it in Nairobi. We will be in the capacity to host it. We don't make the decision. The General Assembly has to make the decision, but I can assure you, by the time we finish with this project, we will be in the capacity, if called upon, be it our security, because we do analysis. Once that request comes, we'll sit to our security, we'll sit to our facilities, and we'll say, what do we do to let it happen? If they come today, I can tell you, the first reaction say, no, I can't. Because I don't have the capacity. But if they call here, whoever is going to be DG after 2030, I can assure you, UNON will be in the position to say, yes, we can host it. But again, as I said, that decision is for the member state to decide. On the issue on the plastic convention, it's a negotiation the president announced, supported by my colleague, friend and sister Inga. She wants the secretariat to be here. But before you talk about the secretariat, let them agree on the plastic convention first. They have not had an agreement. So Kenya has put this proposal, said, we support to want the secretary, like he said. Various conventions were created, and so they have an office around the world. But the president and the ED, who is also under Secretary General, both working to have the secretariat here. If the secretariat comes, you can be rest assured we can host them. We have no doubt about it, that we have the capacity, we can. But until we cross the threshold where the plastic convention has an agreement, and we hope that when they come here for UNEA in December, because they have not been able to arrive at a decision, they will be able to have one. So that's, and I mentioned on the SG, when the SG came, he had a management and developer. I think Chris is my teacher. He might want to come more on that, where he had the efficiency agenda. He spoke about common premises and common back office, but I'd rather leave that with Chris so he can come, because he was the one who educated me. He would be in a better position. But that was the vision of the SG, the efficiency agenda, which was part of his management and development reform when he came over. And part of the reason is that you be in one place, one common premises, so you save rent cost instead of being different. You go to some countries, everybody's in a different location. So he wanted, by being there, you save on the rent. So the common back office, by having different agencies do the job Instead of having 20 offices doing job for each one, you have 2 offices doing it. You save money, and then that resources you put into, and that's the RC. The last thing I want to say before I ask Chris is, sorry, before I ask Chris, is that we will never be able to tell you how many agencies are coming. You get this request. I sleep in the evening, I get an email or WhatsApp, somebody saying, oh, please, I need to bring 10 people. Do you have space? And then who do I turn to? Chris, please, can you sort this out with Stevens? Stephen is the man who handles all the offices. So we will not be able to know because people are doing the assessments. They're looking at their budgets. They're looking at the staff. They are saying, oh, okay, I have 200 staff here. It's too difficult to keep them here. My 20, I will save in this. So it's going to be an ongoing process. Requests come to us all the time, and then we see what space we have. As soon as it comes to me, I hand it over to Chris. Chris sits with his team, and they will deal with the other. So I will not be able to tell you now how many people, because the economic situation is continuous, an ongoing process. Somebody who has not spoken to me last year, who doesn't even think he's coming here, might end up next year realizing my budget is being cut by 40%. Now I have to do crisis management. What do I do? So it's going to be an ongoing thing. This is why we are doing everything. Stevens told you the occupancy rates. One office which was applying 50 people, now he says, oh, I can bring in 50 people. I'm removing. He didn't get time to explain to it. Part of our strategy, remove all the meeting rooms in the buildings. So we have a floating up where we have meetings. So we're looking at every way mechanism to save space. So when called upon, we can easily say, yes, you can bring your people. And then, of course, we sign an agreement with them. We tell them what space. They tell us the number of people. That's how it works. So I wouldn't be in a position now to tell you how many people are coming, because people will make their decision and then they reach out to us. Thank you.
Okay,
I don't, yes.
Yeah.
Chris.
Thank you very much. Just by way of additional comment on the DG's last answer. We've seen some fairly wild stories out there in the world about this mass migration to Nairobi. We don't really recognize that as bearing any relationship to reality. We have seen a number of agencies asking for office space in Nairobi, but we're not talking about thousands of people. We're talking about, in some cases, 100 here, some, 120, some 160, some 10, as the DG said, some 15. We feel that we can, with the growth in facilities on the complex, we can host more. We cannot yet tell whether that is going to be a net increase, however, because as one of you has mentioned, the UN system is facing funding crises. So there is a number of entities on the complex even now in the process of downsizing staff. If Nairobi can continue to maintain, actually, in the current climate, the total staffing complement it has on the complex, I think that would be a win in relation to what is happening in other parts of the world. We are always open for business. The trajectory of the complex since it was gifted to the UN in the early 70s has been upwards, and it's certainly, there's every reason to believe that the long-term prospects are very good. The UN system is moving more to Nairobi in part as well, where it can, in order to spend less on itself. Nairobi is a very conducive place to do work for several reasons. One is, of course, you can imagine that downtown Manhattan is quite expensive place to operate. So places like that in the global north are perhaps more expensive certainly in terms of their staffing costs and other costs. So Nairobi is a superb climate. We're not heating our buildings, we're not cooling our buildings. There is a lot of energy efficiency to being based in Nairobi. So a number of entities have been moving to Nairobi as a cost-effective solution, a way of spending less on themselves. And so, that long term will continue. The current situation is such that we do not see large numbers, and we certainly have the capacity, as Stephen has mentioned, through improved space utilization and by properly using outdoor space to accommodate more. But we do not foresee thousands of people planning to move. In relation to the question about how the UN in Kenya engages with the community and how it seeks to improve the livelihoods of Kenyans, I think it is worth noting that the UN is a many-faceted entity, the UN system. In our duty station, we have UN officers whose work it is to work on global issues, or actually even on the business of other countries. If we could imagine the same question would be asked of a UN headquarters like New York, many of you would not be surprised to find out that the UN in New York is not doing much for communities in New York City. Its work is really global in focus. But Nairobi is a different type of headquarters. We've got a lot of UN agencies that actively support Kenya's development. And of course, that is through what we call the country team, which is led and coordinated by the resident coordinator of the UN. So in Nairobi, we have a very different personality. We have a country program, we have entities that are working just in the regional, and we have entities that are doing very global programs. The country program is very active in urban development challenges, as indeed is the country office of UN Habitat, and they will be working with on Kenyan development issues in partnership with major donors and of course the government. But as a headquartered as a global service, just to say something about UNON, I mean, UNON provides services in more than 160 countries. Member states fund us to do that. They really, to prioritize our work in one country would be to ill-serve the wider membership, and that's why we are global in focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Just one correction, sorry, on the budget for the office project, which is completed, 66.2 million, but we are under budget on that project. So we are on time and we are under budget. I think Madam DG also just referenced the better use, which I think I did touch on. I think I did mention a few numbers. Historically, we had about 50 people on a floor, and we're getting anywhere from 60 to 80 on a floor. So it is significantly improved utilization of the space that we have, which just facilitates the need, the availability of space when required. I think some of these entities that you've heard, and yes, they are in the numbers of 100, 150. Some of them are shifting some of their headquarter staff from other headquarter locations. And they have obviously done their own independent assessments. These are entities who've individually done their assessments. They've looked at locations around the world, and they've made decisions to move here. And there are several of them who have made those decisions. So clearly they've made it based on the offering here, the space that's available, and many other service advantages that we have being based in Kenya. So I think that is very, very positive for the country, that several UN entities have made their assessments and determined that this is the place to do business, and we look forward to more.
Thank you. Yeah, Raphael, and then Casimiro, and then at the back.
I think I speak for for most of my colleagues when I say that this meeting is very, very important in terms of clarifying issues and setting the record straight. For those of us who wrote a while back, I think the hooker was that UN agencies are moving to Nairobi. And I think that is what has been going around. And I think it's more exciting to write about that. But now with this, I think press briefing, I think there is the issue of expansion, which I think will be important. But I think it will be important to just also help us separate between the two, the expansion and relocation. I think from this meeting, we would want to know exactly, is there anything like relocation? We've been talking about 3 UN agencies are about to move to Nairobi. Is that something that is there, or that is just a conversation that was picked from elsewhere? I think that clarification would be very, very important.
Okay, the reality is the relocation, they're not uprooting their offices in New York and coming. No. UNON, most of this agency realize that a lot of the services they provide, their clientele are based in Africa. That's one point. Most of their clients are based in Africa. So if your clientele are based in Africa, even visiting them, you take a plane to New York, you pay, it's more difficult. So they look at that. The second, what we have experienced in UNON, because we are a service provider, you had Chris said, in all the 5 continents, we realize that within the 12-hour time zone, we can reach as far as Latin America, the Lagos, Peru. We can reach as far as Indonesia. So our clients have an opportunity to reach us. We're the time zone where we stretch our hands, we can talk to these people within that 12-hour period, can talk. So it makes you very strategic if you're a global operation, because at some time you can reach. So that makes with 3, Chris said, we don't do heating. We don't do air condition. So you can imagine if you have to have air condition in all of these buildings, how much it will cost us. If we have to have heating in summer, even the conference room, you saw what Jack is saying, those meeting rooms, if you have to put heating in them for big meetings, how much will it cost? So people doing all this analysis come, and I was saying to my colleague when I had breakfast, I lived in New York for 5 years. A 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan is like $6,000. So it's not about the salary you pay staff, it's the cost of living. A 9-bedroom Manhattan will go for like $9,000 per month. So you take all that into consideration. I mean, I was in New York. People live in Pennsylvania to come. They live far, you know. New Jersey. They can't live in Manhattan. So when you look at the cost of rent and other things, so when people are analyzing this agency that did that, it's not about how much I pay staff, but we also have a responsibility to make sure our staff have a standard of living that they can afford. So when all that analysis is done, Kenya is lucky. It has 140-acre land. So it's like a hotel. You take your suitcase, you come. When you come to Gigiri, Peter is there. He provides security for you. You want to have a meeting with members, say, the room is there. You have accommodation. Stevens can give you the office. Sometimes if you pay him well, he can give you you can buy the furniture for you, which are locally made. So it's more cost effective, it's easier. So you do that when your money is starting. So you start looking, where can I save my pennies? So it happened, you have 140-acre land here, which was graciously given by the government, which has enough offices. And of course, what the Secretary General say, whatever we say, we're not going to go into new places to rent. No, we cannot go into places. We go to places where we have office accommodation. So on you saying, to move an headquarters is not, but the headquarters are saying, I can move most of my staff to Nairobi. New York will still be my headquarters, but the bulk of my staff who are doing global operation will go to New York. So so the relocation is taking place. People are moving their global staff who are doing global functions, they're moving them to Nairobi, a lot of them. But they have to leave staff in New York. That's their headquarters. Because, the General Assembly is there, the Secretary General is there. So the relocation is taking place. Relocation is relocating staff to UNON, not relocating the office. So I don't say we have the foresight, but we are buildings who are standing, grace of God. The decision to expand was not because we were expecting people to come, because the buildings were old, they're outdated. We had a vision, let's have more space and everything. Then in the process, the financial crisis is the liquidity. People decide to relocate at a time after we're building and renovating building. So it's not just the right timing. Like we say in Africa, you're in the right place at the right time. UNON happen to be doing the right things at the right time. So we're fortunate, we have space. People now are looking for, oh no, UNON has done expansion, they have new building. Please, can you give us 3-4 rooms? We said, oh, you're welcome. So basically that's how. So it's UNON doing the right thing at the right time. and being in a place where they're opportune to respond to demand, the supply and demand. So we have the supply, the demand is coming, we're able to fulfill it. I think that's where we are. That's how the story should go. So it's not that the UNICEF is moving the UNICEF headquarters. You cannot. That's a big decision for the General Assembly. UNICEF, UNFPA Women, and a lot of others are moving some of their global staff, relocating them into Nairobi, makes it easier for them, one, to reach their bases, their clientele, two, it reduces the costs, and three, they have 140-acre land where they're not going to rent a private compound. It's a UN compound, and it's given to them with UN rates. So I hope that makes it a little bit clear. So relocation is taking place, agreed. But it's not like these people are moving lock, stock, and barrel their offices. No, they can't. The Secretary General can't move. It's a General Assembly decision. You can't. So that decision, Modi, but you can manage it. You can, electrics, bend it, don't break it, basically. So they can bend it as much as I can. So they can save money, save costs, manage their staff better, respond to their clientele better, because they are in a time zone where if a crisis happens in DRC, they can run there. Something is happening in this, because most of the problems, whether we like it or not, are happening in Africa. That's the reality. Thank you. So I know my colleague.
I think Chris Kakaldi wanted to add to that, and then we'll come to Casimiro and our colleague in the back.
Yeah, just on the point. I mean, a lot of the capital projects that you've seen presented today were part of long-term strategic calculations around the incremental growth in the compound on the office side, and certainly the replacing older buildings. On the conference side, clearly environmental multilateralism, for one, is growing in significance, and the conference center was both inadequate as well as dilapidated, and that expansion is part of a strategic long-term plan. The recent moves, fueled in part by the need to find efficiencies, are not as dramatic as indeed may have been reported elsewhere. Agencies are not pulling out, as the DG said, headquarters functions and moving them to Nairobi. Some parts of their headquarters work might be more effectively being done in Nairobi, and they may be moving some of it. Personally, as a landlord, I cannot tell you whether we will have more tenants, given that there's a downsizing occurring within the larger offices in Nairobi. I would like to think not, and even if there was downsizing globally, if more are moving to Nairobi, maybe that will offset some of the downsizing that will occur in Nairobi. Certainly, some entities that want to move staff into Nairobi are doing so seamlessly because those staff are stepping into offices that have been downsized. So they're not actually asking for amounts of office space that is a direct increase in over what they currently have. There is no doubt that Nairobi is a hugely desirable duty station for UN operations. And we've talked about other costs, but another major factor that has driven growth in Nairobi is the availability of qualified local labor. The truth is the UN really only moves staff in its international staff categories, and there's lots of jobs allocated for people who have a right to work locally in a country, and those jobs will not be moving, but the jobs will be moving, but the people won't. So at best, I would foresee that we would be incrementally growing in staffing in the years ahead, but nothing revolutionary yet. Until, of course, if the financial climate changes, then yes, you could see a snowball effect, and the UN would accelerate its growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I think Casimiro.
Just a few points.
He's the Chief of Staff in the Office of the Director.
I work for UNON. My name is Casimiro. It's not a question or questions, but rather maybe some points by way of contributing to the discussion. When we speak about Nairobi, and I had spent more than a decade working in the humanitarian world before joining UNON, For some of you, I'm sure you must have followed the role Kenya and Nairobi played in facilitating humanitarian action in the region. It was a humanitarian hub, and a bulk of humanitarian assistance going on in neighboring countries, and one of them is my own. You guys may remember Lifeline Sudan. You may remember the massive humanitarian interventions in the Great Lakes region. Most of it was done from Nairobi. So to go beyond UNON and speak about Nairobi in a broader sense, Nairobi has always been a hub, and most of you colleagues here are Kenyans. You are aware of that, and you are aware of the fact that stability played a big role in the fact that Kenya has been really the place from which a lot has been going on in the humanitarian world. I thought of highlighting this point so that we don't look at it like it's a surprise. Why are people coming to Nairobi? Some of those entities, and if you speak about the agencies, most of the UN agencies have a leg in development and a leg in humanitarian. And some of the regional offices are based here in order to continue the work they are doing in both areas of development as well as in humanitarian assistance. The second point I would like to highlight is, and thank you very much for the question about what is it that the UN is doing for the Mwananchi in Kenya. I think I would really encourage you to have to get the time to speak to the resident coordinator for Kenya, because as it was indicated in the presentations, there is a United Nations country team. The country team is headed by a resident coordinator. It brings together 27 UN agencies, and those agencies work in the area of development as well as in humanitarian assistance. And it is based on the needs of the country in the area of development. And it's a whole process. It usually starts with discussions between the UN and Kenya, whereby the government identifies its development needs and the UN country team comes together. Each entity in line with its mandate brings its contribution to this area. I think if you really have an interest in knowing more about what the country team is doing for Kenya, I think the resident coordinator's office is the right entity to do that. And in conclusion, I would also like to highlight a point that keeps coming up in discussions, not only here, but even amongst us in the United Nations, and which brings to mind a very basic fact. The UN is an intergovernmental organization which has organs, and its member states who sit in these organs deliberate, decide, and for the implementation of their decisions, they have created entities that are entrusted with the implementation of the decisions. So these entities, like us, we cannot talk about ourselves as the United Nations. We are not the only UN. The UN is actually an intergovernmental organization which has organs such as the Security Council, General Assembly, ECOSOC, etc., etc. So it is member states who decide on what they want to do and where they want to do it, and then they call upon us to implement their decisions, and they give us the resources for the implementation of the decision. That's a point I wanted to highlight as we are talking about the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Casimiro. We have one last question in the back, and then we'll do the wrap up. And once we go onto the tour, there'll also be opportunities there to ask any additional questions you might have. Sir, if you could introduce yourself and your media organization. Thanks.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Kebaso. I'm an independent health science journalist. I've been working in local media houses for more than 20 years now. And having come here for the last 20 years, stepped in this compound, I think what we are showcasing here is steps towards the right direction. My question will be largely around health. We all agree that poor infrastructure has negative impacts on health. I don't know what your thoughts are around, especially mental health with now this kind of expansion program. Yeah.
Thank you very much. As my colleague Casimiro has just spoken, we have what we call in the UN mandates. You know, I have a mandate of service delivery. The agency responsible for health is WHO. And what to elaborate on what Casimiro said, that's why I gave that thing that Cameron presented. All of those offices, the only one that works on Kenya is the RC and his team. Every other person, either global operation, regional, we are here, but we don't work on Kenya. I am different because you have 4 USGs. I have Inga, she deals with UNEP around the world. So that's what she was in the 193 country offices, so she runs that. Anna Claudia is UN Habitat. Because I am representing the Secretary General and also the highest government, I have to work with the government. But I work with the government on the UN being in Kenya. So I don't discuss Kenya issue, particular national issue. That's the responsibility of the RC. So obviously, WHO, which is given the mandates to deal with global health, they have a WHO, different arms. You know, very different UN, WHO are here. But we have a WHO country office, and they work under the RC. So it's difficult. That's why maybe when we have a next meeting, if we're able to have a next meeting, we'll get the RC to come so that those specific questions could be addressed by him. But definitely, I can tell you, we have UNICEF, who also do a little bit on health because they work on children. We have UNFPA, who deals with women reproductive health. But the main thing is WHO, and I can tell you, UNAIDS also. We have a UNAIDS office who works on UNAIDS. So you have different, but the main one is WHO. And we have 27 of those agencies, they're under. So definitely I can tell you, when I work on mental health, as you know, we work on the men because we're responsible for UN staff. That's everybody who is in this company, every UN staff. So we deal with mental health. We have a general medical side, but that is for UN staff. But for Kenya, it's WHO and UNICEF and UNAIDS. And so they have the health. Having been a minister of health, they have what you call the health development partners. So they work with government, they sign an agreement. Like my colleague said, they sit down with the government and say, what are your problems? And they say, where do we fund you? And they sit down, they agree. And on that basis, they will raise money and then they will spend it on the areas. So the UN is a big elephant, different arms. I hope I can make a little bit of sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director General, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this part of the program. I now want to invite the Director General to make her closing remarks.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and active participation at today's press briefing. However, before we disperse, allow me to make an appeal for your support in addressing one of the challenges the UN is facing today relating to an increase in scam using the UN name. This has actually and truly been very challenging to us. I would like to alert the public, I want you to be aware that the UN is aware of fraudulent activities and scam using name, UN name, logo, and image for targeting the public. You know, it's coming out of this people talking that there are so many UN coming here, procurements, we're embarking on so many contracts. And these scams are particularly through verbal promises and social media, including via private WhatsApp, for example, WhatsApp and Telegram, falsely offering UN system jobs or procurement opportunity. So people are scammed. Oh, there's a job in the UN. If you pay me 5,000, you know, I'll give you the job. We have people appearing at the gate saying, I've got a job, I'm assigned, I have to start working here. When we investigate, Peter, every day Peter sends me this information. When we investigate, this person has paid somebody, the person has offered them a job, they even have a letter. It's a scam. Because of these things saying UN is moving here and we have a lot of unemployment and people are being scammed for UN jobs, procurement, I have a contract, all this sort of thing. So we would like to remind the public that the United Nations does not charge any fees for any recruitment or procurement opportunities at any stage. So if somebody says, you give me money, I want to, on your behalf, to get you to get a contract, it's not possible. No. If somebody says, oh, there's a job, I know who has the UN is advertising jobs, I have a contact person in the UN, give me money, I'll make you get a job. No. All UN recruitment and procurement process are conducted through UN official channels. So we advertise in LinkedIn everywhere, you apply. Payments at any stage of a UN recruitment or procurement process could be considered a bribe, which constitutes a crime. If someone asks somebody to pay for UN contracts or you have been a victim for fraud, we encourage you to report to the local authorities. Please, nobody, I repeat, nobody asks people to pay for jobs. We don't. Nobody asks you to pay upfront to get a contract. No. Not at any time. We do the bidding, we have the UN marketplace, you have to register, we put the contract in, you bid, procurement process goes in. You don't spend a single cent other than at the last stage, you have a guarantee, which is part of the condition of getting the contract, a bank guarantee to say you can deliver, even that you don't give us money. So at no stage during our recruitment process, during our procurement, do we ask people to give money. So I just thought it's important we have this opportunity, you're here. And I think it's coming out of this thing saying UN is moving to Nairobi. So because the high unemployment you have now, some smart people are now using the opportunity to scam people. Say, give me a job, give me 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. I'll make sure when the UN is moving here, you get a job. I just wanted to bring this so be aware, so let's help educate the public and everybody. Once again, thank you for your time and for the important work you do each day to inform the public. It's critical. An informed public make an informed decision. And when an informed decision is made, it can affect your life in a very good way. So you rationalize, you know what is good, what is bad. So the role of the media is very, very important and critical. We appreciate your continued engagement and professionalism and look forward to keeping an open line of communication with your teams. We're here. Please, Sandra is my colleague. Our doors are open. Anytime you think there is a need, you want information, don't hesitate. We ask you to fill the forms so you get the accredited, so you don't have to stand 3 hours at the gates. Once you get your badge, you all need to phone Sandra. I'm coming to see you. I have a question for the DG. So you still have to come through security, but you have your badge. Nobody's going to ask you more questions because you have a badge. You have a right to enter. So please work with her. We will be happy to share further updates on the matters we have spoken about today as they become available. Again, as I said, if you need us to say, oh, we have so many things is being done, can we get the DG to come and address us? We can. That's our job. So I want to thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. I think I'll journey towards the end to share the last coffee before you leave. Thank you very much and God bless.
All right, thank you, DG. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We shall now proceed to the lobby area upstairs to begin our guided tour with Mr. Stephen Stanner, who you've met, and followed by Mr. Jack Howard. And a reminder that once we're done with that loop, we'll finish again at this lobby where there will be tea and coffee. Thank you so much. you.